Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update. So most of this is just going to be some extra details that we have about the premiere of Braving the Elements Season 3. But there is some kind of interesting stuff in here. So straight away, the first one here is that they did just announce this yesterday. The first episode, they're obviously going to be doing a premiere on YouTube, because that's the big significant thing. They're doing it on video. Now, the idea here is that it says live chat with Janet Varney and Dante Bosco. It's a YouTube premiere, so the episode has been recorded, but they will both, I think, be in the live chat. So if you watch as they live debut this episode for the first time, you will be able to chat with Janet and Dante. If you are so interested, it's a fun little thing to do to hype it up, because they know people are very interested in the voice actors and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's probably one of those ones where it's actually like relatively late, 6 p.m. Eastern time. That means it's like, what, 11 my time? So it's relatively late, actually, here. I'll probably still check it out, see what happens. Mainly because I was kind of like, if it's just the first, like the Awakening review episode, it's kind of like, okay, I'll listen to the podcast eventually. But because we know that it's actually going to be Mike and Bryan on the first podcast, and we'll get into this in a second, that makes me much more eager to actually kind of join in. At least listen to the podcast. I'm not sure how much is actually going to be going on in the live chat as this is happening, but we'll see how it goes. Other information, people pointed this out to me in the comments on the last video, that FCE, we knew he was going to be on the live Braving the Elements podcast at SF Sketchfest, which I covered in a previous video. That's happening on the 28th of January. But he mentioned here, he's going to be on 2 episodes of Braving the Elements. So one of them, of course, is that live show. But the other one is, the first is an interview alongside audiobook narrator of Kyoshi and Yang Chen, Nancy Wu. So that sounds cool. That actually sounds like it's going to be a really interesting episode of the podcast. Janet and Dante, I guess, talking to FCE and Nancy Wu specifically about the novels. I'm assuming that will be kind of one of these extra episodes that is not like them reviewing an episode, maybe, and it probably is just a review. An interview. So I'd be very interested to see what they do there, because I suppose it'll be a slightly different situation than conventions, where oftentimes there's 3 or 4 different publishers and people from different publishers there, and so the novels only get a little bit of attention, 1 or 2 questions. Here's a chance to actually go deep into like quite a lot of discussion over a whole podcast interview about the novels. Hopefully some good questions get asked here. And then Nancy Wu also being there is an interesting one. Very interesting to see if she has anything to say about the recording process, about like if she gets sort of like pronunciation notes about character names, or how exactly that all goes. Still interesting. At the very least, it means there's going to be a handful of Braving the Elements podcast with interviews that are going to be quite interesting to check out there. So this one, of course, about the novels, and then this one here. Now, the trailer here is just the standard trailer that we've seen before, but Mike and Bryan are going to be on this first podcast. Just to show this off a little bit clearer here, you can see here, they do have the thumbnail up highlighting that it is Mike and Bryan who are going to be on episode 1 of season 3. Yeah, Avatar creators on Aang vs. Ozai Final Battle plus more Braving the Elements podcast full episode. So full episodes going up. And yeah, they're joined by Avatar The Last Airbender creators, Brian Konietzko and Michael Dante DiMartino, as they welcome fans back to the podcast, go behind the scenes on the original animated series, and give a sneak peek at some amazing things to come in future episodes. And then, interesting here, they have timestamps, because of course the episode's been pre-recorded, and we're just going to get to see it at that point. So here we go. Intro, welcoming, and then this is very interesting, the third one here. For about 56 seconds, we are going to get talk from Mike and Bryan about current projects, which you have to assume means Avatar Studios. That is their current project. That's what they're working on. It is very unfortunate that it literally, as you can see here, 149 to 245, it is under a minute that this will get discussed, but I hope they have something to say. I really hope they have something to say about it. That is not just be patient. There'll be like the comments that we've seen before. I'd like some form of an update, some acknowledgement of like the fact that the last time they talked about this was like a year ago. Especially like Mike, I don't think we've really seen to say much about anything at all recently. Bryan at least was on the YouTube video from like 9-ish months ago up on the channel, but that didn't have too much to it. So I hope there's something here. Beginnings of Avatar, they covered a lot of this in their original interview they did on the podcast, so I'm glad they're only spending a few minutes on it, recapping Book 2, Aang's death in Book 2, so I like that they're acknowledging and phrasing it that way. New characters in Book 3, Ozai face reveal and impact, talking about Iroh, Fire Nation inspirations, Mike and Bryan's favourite episodes, I guess, from Book 3. Then there's a little section here for about a minute, they talk about the novels. Names for Fire Lords, that's going to be an interesting one there to see, like, might they reveal something else? Probably not. Expanding Piandao's story, that's an interesting one because what do they mean by that? And it seems like it gets like, at least 3 and a bit minutes on this. That's more than a lot of other things here. Are they referring to the extra information from the website about like Piandao having like firebender parents and that whole thing? The stuff that's just absolutely not referenced in the episode really at all. And the idea that of the like old masters, he probably gets like fleshed out as a character, potentially the least. Are they going to address some of that? Maybe tease something more to come with him? Who knows? They talk about Avatar Karuk, foreshadowing the lion turtle. Would Aang have ever ended Ozai? That's an interesting one. Origin of the firebending masters. So I wonder by that, do they mean like dragons? Or are they talking about the ancient sun warriors? That could be interesting. Western Air Temple design. Is Hama the reason Kaya was killed? So this is that pretty famous like fan theory, if I remember correctly, with the idea sort of being that Hama doing what she did, the result of that is sort of that the Fire Nation kind of cracked down harder on the Water Tribe, knowing that like she like escaped and did stuff, and that potentially led to what happened with Kaya. I think there's some extra layers to it. I forget the exact details, but something along those lines is the sort of idea. I'm not sure if part of this theory is the whole idea of they come with the idea we have word that there's one more Southern Water Tribe bender out there. Is that just them thinking that because Hama escaped? Or did they actually get a report about like Katara? That's sort of always been this little bit of a kind of mystery idea there of like, is that one waterbender Yon Ra kind of talks about, the report that they got, is it referring to Hama who had escaped previously? Or is it they somehow know about Katara? So that's an interesting one. Mike and Bryan's favourite Avatar Last Airbender relationships. Most challenging scene of Book 3. That could be interesting. Goodbyes, fan shoutouts. Sounds interesting. I think there's at least 5 or 6 interesting questions there. We'll see how Mike and Bryan approach tackling it. The slight issue that you typically have with this is because it's like official kind of questions, is that they always sort of, in a way, let Mike and Bryan have the out to basically just not answer the question. Whereas I think they do feel more inclined to answer things if they are directly being asked a question by fans rather than by Janet and Dante. So we'll see how exactly this goes, but I think it's the right way to start the season. Mike and Bryan interview. I hope there is something to be said in the Avatar Studios update. I don't think it will be like major news, but I just hope they have the kind of update that we have wanted for a while, and that they don't just say be patient and blah blah blah, that standard comment that we've got for quite a while now. I hope it's not just that. But yeah, coming on the 16th, so because it's pretty late as well when it's going to happen, I guess I'll be covering this probably the day afterwards on the 17th, assuming anything actually does happen. But that is that. Then, I just want to mention this because I thought this was an interesting thing to note. I just put this out there on Twitter, that I went back and checked. the date when Netflix One Piece came out, and then when did they get their full trailer? Because they've had basically the same marketing kind of rollout as Avatar has had. They released their full trailer 40 days before the season came out. We are now under 40 days away from Netflix Avatar, so I think today marks like 39 days to go. So basically the idea is that yes, we are for sure in trailer kind of countdown range. We are expecting to, I guess, see it realistically any day now, depending on what they want to do. Will they leave it much closer to release, or are they going to do it basically in or around a month to go? February 22nd, so will they wait until maybe January 22nd or in or around that? But the idea is potentially next week we could be like hearing about what's going on with this. I'm not sure what exactly way they're going to do it, because I don't think there's necessarily like an event. I don't know if there's like an event coming up anytime soon that they could do it at, or is it just going to be a drop at some point? Either way, it is going to be huge. Like excitement for this is already very high, but I think people do want to see more. Screenshots is kind of not enough anymore. I think we need the full trailer at this point to just put the hype completely over the edge, so that the anticipation is huge heading into the actual release. So the timing on that, they just need to get it right, and if the trailer works, they've got a mega hit on their hands, because One Piece kind of led the way. It was I think in general, like, there was like a lot of surprise with just how good it actually was, and like how much confidence there now is behind it, and it did really, really well for Netflix. And obviously the first teaser trailer for Avatar has done better than the Netflix teaser trailer for One Piece, so there is probably an even higher potential here, depending on how they do it. So just potentially exciting days ahead here as we build up to the trailer. I don't think there's been really any rumors necessarily about when exactly it's going to drop, but I'm assuming they'll tease it ahead of time, so we'll know at least like a day or two in advance that like the trailer is coming soon. And I don't think we've quite had that yet, but just know that we're, at the very least, we're in range now of the trailer dropping. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on, of course, Netflix Avatar hype, but stuff about the podcast. Does the fact that there's going to be a live chat with Janet and Dante mean anything to you? Potential for a pretty interesting novel interview podcast episode at some point. And then probably the most interesting stuff, we actually know the topics that are going to be discussed in the first episode on the Mike and Bryan interview. So that's potentially exciting, and that they're going to at least say something about current projects, assuming that that means Avatar Studios. But who knows? They might completely ignore that and just talk about the soundtrack or something like that. There's always the potential they completely evade the questions we want asked. But in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on this news. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.